Hello friends, Sarah here with the Children's Museum of Eau Claire, and today we are going to make a paper mache bowl. So what you're going to need for this is a few things. First, to make your paper mache glue, you're going to need 1-to-1 part of flour and water. So in this bowl, I have 2 cups of flour, and then in this I have 2 cups of water. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to mix those together. And you're going to want to mix it really good. You don't want any clumps in there, so I'm going to use a fork or a whisk, whatever you have, to mix it really good so that it's nice and pasty. You don't want any of those clumps in there. So mix it really good, 1-to-1 part water and flour. There are some recipes out there that you can use glue with, but I find this is definitely the easiest because most people have the flour and the water around their house, maybe not as much glue as you would need to make a paper mache bowl. So for paper mache, you can actually make anything with it. I'm gonna make a bowl, and then we're gonna decorate it at the end as well. But you can definitely make a piñata if you wanted to use a balloon. You could do that. There's many things you could do. All you really need is a base, and then you have to just wrap the paper mache around it, and it's super easy. So I have my paper mache all mixed up. That was really quick. So I mixed all my paper mache mud up, and this is what it looks like. It's pretty liquidy, so I don't want to tip it too much, but it's really liquidy. It kind of looks like dough almost, but it's very liquidy. So the next step is I'm gonna actually cover my bowl. I'm gonna put a plastic bag around it. You don't have to do this step if you don't want to. It just keeps it a little bit cleaner. And then I do have this base here as well that I'm using just to catch any extras that drip off. So we have our bowl covered, we have our paper mache mud made. So the next step is we are going to use some newspaper. So I'm just going to cut up my newspaper into strips or squares, whatever you think will work best. I'm going to do strips so that I can kind of wrap it around my bowl. So I'm just going to keep my paper folded, and I'm going to cut it into strips like this. So I'm going to cut a whole bunch of those. Okay, so now that all of my strips are made, the next step is actually assembling it. So that was a really quick prep. So you're gonna take your strips of newspaper and you are gonna put them in your paper mache mud. So I'm gonna make sure it's totally submerged, get this really, really full of the mud. This part's gonna get a little messy, so if you wanna put an apron on or some gloves, and make sure you have your space covered in case you don't want that part to get dirty either. So I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and we're gonna go for it. So you're gonna submerge that whole thing in there. It's gonna get a little goopy, it's gonna get a little yucky. And then I'm gonna actually string it out. So you can see here I'm putting my fingers on both sides of it and I'm pulling it down so that there's not a whole lot extra so that I can use that for other. But you have to be very careful because that newspaper is very thin. So you don't want it to rip. Okay, so I got my paper here full of mud, and I'm gonna place it right on top of my bowl. So you can do this whatever direction you want to. And then if you wanted to rip it at the bottom there, I don't know if you saw that, but I ripped it here. So I have another piece so that it didn't overlap too much. But if you wanted to add that for decoration, you definitely could. So you can see I'm kind of pushing my bag down. They don't need to be right on top of each other right now because we're gonna fill that whole space. And we're gonna go in with some more. Okay, again, we're just gonna pull it down. Again, not too hard because we don't want it to rip right now. We can rip it when we have it on our bowl. Okay, so that paper is now fully covered in our paper mache mud. And I'm gonna bring this one around the base of the bowl, which once I flip it will be the top of the bowl. So I'm gonna wrap it around the bottom, just like this. We had a little rip there, but that's okay. We'll just stick it on top. Okay, so we're just gonna keep doing this until our bowl is completely covered. Okay, now that my whole bowl is covered, I'm going to let this sit and dry for a couple hours. If you want to let it dry overnight, that'd be super great too, just to make sure it's really solidified. Then we're going to take it off of the bowl and out of the bag, and then we're going to paint it. And then you can use it for whatever you want. Okay, so now that my paper mache has totally solidified, it got nice and hard, I'm going to take it off my bowl and I'm going to paint it. So I just have the primary colors here, red, yellow, and blue, so that I can mix them, but you can definitely design it however you want to. Like I said, if you are doing a piñata and you are using a balloon, you would want to pop the balloon and then pull it out, just like I'm pulling this out. Again, you'll have some pieces that'll fall off. That's okay. So if you want to do it on a surface that you can clean easily, go ahead and do that. But if you do it on a balloon, you're going to want to pop the balloon and then pull the balloon out. And then you can cover that with another piece of paper mache if you save one. Or you can just cover it with some glue or some tape once you fill it. But you don't have to paint the inside of the piñata. Obviously, you can just paint the outside. So I have my bowl here and now I'm going to paint it. You can fix around the edges with the scissors. You can cut around it so it's a little bit more even. But I'm going to go ahead and paint it and we're going to see how it turns out. Okay, so now I have the entire outside of my bowl totally painted. You can see here. I went with all kinds of different colors around it and I painted the bottom. I'll paint the inside once the outside is dry, but let's see what you guys can make with your paper mache. Enjoy!